Hey, you're listening to Births at Home, the podcast with me, Esmeralda, the home birth doula. Today, we are going to have Maddie come on and tell us her home birth story, how the day unfolded, and how she got into birth work as well. So, grab your coffee and listen on to the story. Hey, Maddie, if you just want to go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Maddie Hagan. I am a wife, mom to two girls, toddler and or 2.5 year old and an almost 7 month old outside of or in the Sacramento, California area. And I am a birth nerd, as I'm sure you are too.
Yes.
Like when it comes down to it, people are like, "How do you know this?" I'm like, "I'm just a nerd at heart,
Mhm.
really."
Yeah. That's so funny. Yeah, I'm exactly the same way where I just, like, start spitting out all these facts, and they're like, "How do you know all this information?" I'm like, "'Cause that's all I do all day is just
Yeah,
research birth, basically."
exactly, exactly. Or I can recall the time there was this show on TLC back in like, let's see, probably the early 2000s. I don't know. I don't think it
Mhm.
runs anymore. It's called A Baby Story. And I remember
Okay.
being like 6 or like maybe even 5 years old. And somehow TLC would wind up on our TV. And I'm watching, it's like all these moms with the like kind of late 90s vibes and the hair. And I was just like, this is so cool. They're like, it follows the mom through like the last like little bit of their pregnancy, and then
Yeah.
she's in the hospital giving birth, and then like that immediate postpartum period. I'm like, tell me more. And my mom's like, what are you watching?
That's so funny. Yeah,
Yeah.
people would think I was so weird when I was little because I would always say like, "Oh yeah, I want babies. I want to be a mom." And I was like little and I would carry babies all the time. And they're like, no, you don't." And I'm like, "Yes, I do. Like that's what I want to be. I want to be a mom."
Yes, yes. No, it is the most highest and beautiful, wonderful calling. And
Mhm.
it just, yeah, it's work, but it's absolutely beautiful. So thank you. I just appreciate you for having this conversation and having me here to chat with you and all the other women that you've chatted with and are about to chat with. I think it's just, you know, I think we're starting to take a step in the direction of women want autonomy over their birth, even if
Yeah.
they're in a hospital. And I think we're doing a good job of educating women. We're getting there. We're not there
Yeah.
yet, but I think with the power of social media, we really have the power to empower women. And just even
Mhm.
if you want all the things during birth, you should at least go in knowing, like, here's the risk versus reward, right? And
Yeah.
when we enter our births with empowerment and knowledge, then we have that kind of that backbone to put your foot down and say, no, I want this. This is
Mhm.
how you're going to serve me. And I hope one day that providers and hospitals realize, like, maybe this isn't working. Maybe we need to take a step back and start listening to women and really look at the evidence for all these interventions and look at the rates of
Yeah.
birth trauma. So I'm so grateful for women like you who are unafraid to host
Mhm.
that conversation and be like, no, we're making some change.
Yeah, definitely, it's needed, but
Mhm.
we're making small steps there, but we'll get there. I'm hopeful of that. So, if you just wanna go ahead and kind of tell us how you got into the whole home birth world.
Yeah, absolutely. So I found out I was pregnant with our first daughter, Juliet, in 2021, COVID baby. um, and at the time, we had only been married for, let's see, hardly 3 months. And we were ready, but it was like, oh my gosh, like this is really happening. So
Yeah.
just kind of, you don't know what you don't know, right, when it comes to pregnancy,
Mhm.
birth, and postpartum. And we were living in South Central Washington at the time, and I knew for a fact that I wanted a midwife. So I said, okay, we're gonna
Yeah.
find a midwife. And I found one, and she was so kind and so wonderful. But after a while, I started to notice she was a certified nurse midwife, and that's
Okay.
not to generalize that or anything, but I started to notice the pattern of really quick appointments. It's just, and I think they just maybe have a big caseload, like maybe
Mhm.
maybe providers within those type of practices don't have the time to sit down for an hour and talk about, okay, how are you feeling and all those things. So
Yeah.
um, I just started to kind of notice that during my care, and I was like, okay, you know what, this is how it's going to be. We were living in an apartment, so I'm like, I don't think I'm a home birth. I don't think I don't want to give birth in an apartment. Like I have
Yeah.
neighbors that are 2 seconds, 2 feet away. So I just didn't think that maybe at the time that I was a candidate for that. So we continued with care. Pregnancy was beautiful, uneventful. I worked as a TV journalist during it, so I was grinding my butt off up until I went on leave. And I planned to birth in a hospital, and kind of the classic, well, I'm going to go epidural free, but I did absolutely nothing to prepare for going epidural free. And I just thought
Hmm.
that I'd be able to wing it and things would be easy peasy, lemon squeezy. How hard can it be? Right. Well, I was
Yeah.
very, um, just did not, I had no family nearby, only a close select amount of friends who had been through birth before. And so that support wasn't there, that knowledge of like, here's what you can expect in early labor versus active labor. So we went
Yeah.
to the hospital way too early. They admitted me way too early. And from there, just the classic cascade of interventions, they're
Hmm.
second you enter their door, it's like you're on our watch, and it's like, well, we could give you Pitocin to speed things up. And
Yeah.
that just leads to painful contractions where I'm like, I cannot handle this. I was like, I
Hmm.
need epidural, and it just led to all the things. I had a vacuum assist birth, tore in 3 different places.
Oh
Breastfeeding
no.
was very hard to get started, but we lasted for a year and a half. And so I was just like, man, that was really brutal. And not to mention the postpartum
Mhm.
period, which nobody prepares you for, not even my
Yeah.
provider. So after that, I was like, we got to, if we're gonna have more kids, I got to figure out a way to do this differently.
Yeah.
um,
Hmm.
and so let's see, Juliet turned, let's see, she was about, I want to say she's close to 16 months when I started not to feel good around Thanksgiving of 2022. My husband goes, you have to be pregnant. I'm like, no, there's no way. I'm just nauseous. Well, I was pregnant again with a second daughter. And I was like, okay, we live in a house now. I don't want to experience the interventions. I know my body was made to do this. I know
Mhm.
that I can do this without any sort of epidural or anything. So I found the most wonderful midwife in Tri-Cities, Washington, Olga. Her and I still communicate to this day. She became like a part of our family. And
Yeah.
I just from the get-go was like, oh my gosh, this is a world of difference. I mean, hour-long
Mhm.
appointments where she's looking at me in the eyes, we're talking, we're laughing, we're just, you know, just like a normal conversation, talking
Mhm.
about fears, previous birth, what I hope for this future birth. And so when the day came, I gave birth on July 3rd of last year, and it was just beautiful. It was work, but I mean, we were just kind of hanging around at the house, laughing until I was
Mhm.
like 10 centimeters dilated, and then things got a little serious. But it's just I I wish I would go through my first daughter's birth again to get her here safely, but I just wish that I didn't have to go through all of that in order to have this second like redemption type of birth. And I feel like that's a
Yeah.
very common story for a
Mhm.
lot of women. It's like I had this really hard or traumatic or just kind of just undesired first birth, and like, yeah, we were happy and healthy. And then that second go around, they're like, I have this beautiful home birth or birth center birth or unmedicated hospital birth. And I hope we can change the narrative where first time moms feel empowered enough to be like, no, I got this. I don't need all the things. And so yeah, it just that all of that kind of opened my eyes, and here I am today, just almost a certified birth doula, and
Awesome.
videographer, and that really kind of propelled me
Mhm.
into this. And so now looking back, I know that God was preparing me for all of that, and sometimes we have to go through things to get to where we are.
Yeah, definitely. That's amazing. I love that. Um, and so do you kind of wanna go into your labor a little bit of how, like, that started and how that whole day went, if it was a
Absolutely.
day?
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so my midwife and I, we still like, we're laughing about it, weeks after postpartum. So I thought my water broke on like July or June 28th or 29th, somewhere around there.
Mhm.
And I have to say that my water was broken with my first daughter. So I was like, I
Mm,
don't know what to expect. Like, the
yeah.
movies portray it one way and, it really isn't like that. So I went to the restroom and I was like, oh my gosh, to my husband, Trenton, I was like, I think my water's broken. And so I did the little test strip and it turned blue. I'm like, yay, it's happening. Thank God. And, it's the heat of summer in South Washington, which is basically the desert. So it's like 100 million degrees. So I'm like, oh, yes. And so I text Olga, my midwife, and I'm like, okay, I think my water broke. She's like, okay, awesome. Like, I'll come by later today and
Uh-huh.
come just like check on you and just kind of just relax, stay hydrated, move around if you can. And so I was like, yes, okay, great, it's happening. It's like, I got this. And so she came by later that day, and I think I was about 2 to 3 centimeters dilated. So I was like, awesome, okay, great. I It's all without even having to focus through it. And so she left that night, and no, just Braxton Hicks contractions. But again, you don't know what you don't know about like active labor versus just prodromal and early labor stuff. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, well, it's happening every 5 minutes for a minute. This has to be real labor, which it is
Mhm.
not. um, and so she came back the next day, and I had progressed even more to 4 centimeters. So we're like, okay, maybe this is happening. I'm just super chill, like easy early contractions. And we actually had my angel of a mother-in-law. She offered to fly in early because we had no family up in Washington,
Mhm.
to watch our eldest daughter. So she last minute changes her flight, flies in, comes and grabs Juliet, and it's like, we're gonna go have a day at the hotel and all this stuff. And so we're
Yeah.
we're in the house, we're getting the birth tub ready. We're
Mhm.
my husband ran to Walmart and got all the snacks. We're like, yay. And so sure enough, we make it to kind of like the 48-hour mark. So, thinking my water had been broken for about 48 hours, which is when um midwives or just professionals are like, okay, we need to either kind of get things moving, or just the concern of infection is there. But I was feeling
Yeah.
fine. I was great. It was beautiful sunny weather, excited. And so baby was moving fine. And my midwife, she's like, this is just so strange, like you haven't started any sort of active labor. So just to be double sure, I went to our local hospital for some sort of swab sample. And it turns out my water had not broken. So, because, those talks of, well, like we might, the P word comes out, Pitocin or induction. And obviously that's not something that my midwife wanted to even mention or talk about, but it's like,
Yeah.
you to come to that balance of risk of infection versus getting baby out. And so, we just did to be safe, and thank you, God, water hadn't broken. So we're like, okay, well,
Yeah.
bring the toddler back. We can all sleep easy tonight. So that was a
Mhm.
Friday morning. Uh, had a wonderful just weekend with my mother-in-law and my husband and our daughter. We went to a wonderful dinner, and then Sunday morning we get to church that morning. And your end of pregnancy, I'm not wearing a bra, I'm not wearing underwear, I'm so over it, so pregnant.
Yeah.
So I walk in with just my maxi dress, just ready to just attempt some praise. And I go to the bathroom and I'm like, yes, hallelujah. Like mucus plug is out, like bloody
Uh-huh.
show, like score. Okay, awesome. So it's just that moment of like excitement. To me, it
Mhm.
feels like Christmas morning when like that all happens. So we get through the service, we go get some crepes, and just it's kind of that bittersweet moment of like knowing your firstborn is like not going to be your only child for a little while longer.
Mhm.
And all those emotions of like, how could I possibly like love anything, like, or like not split that love, but almost like, oh my gosh,
Mhm.
I love you so much, and now I have another one. Like, I want to divide my attention appropriately. So just those
Yeah.
bitter feelings, all those emotions. And about 4 o'clock that afternoon, my mother-in-law and husband were out just getting some groceries, stocking us up. My water broke while I was home alone with our toddler. And I was like, we were actually outside playing with like the hose or something like that, just trying to
Mhm.
stay cool. And I'm like, okay, it's happening. Like, you guys home soon? Well, not 15 minutes later, they come home. They have a giant backyard, like out of the ground pool. So I'm dying laughing because I'm like, I'm in labor. You guys brought home a pool. um, and it was just the funniest thing. So they set it up. And they're like, well, we might as well set it up. They're like, are you doing well? I'm like, I'm great. I got this. And sure enough, it was like clockwork. After my water broke, those contractions, it's like just intensified so much more. And it was totally manageable still. So I
Mhm,
labored through the night, texted my midwife Olga and was like, hey, I think this is the real deal. She's like, great, okay, awesome. I'm like, it's
mhm.
legit this time, I promise. So I labored through the night. I was just way too excited to sleep. That in and out of sleep, kind of like awake, asleep, awake, asleep. Um,
Mhm.
and I text her around like 6 to 7 the night. That was so Monday morning,
Okay.
and okay, this is getting like serious. I'm like, well, you guys, I'm ready for the team to come. And of course, she had like, I think like 4 moms due within like a 2 week time frame of July. And she's like, okay, we're in Walla Walla, which is about an hour away. We'll be there as soon as we can. I'm like, of course. Like, what? Once like 4 moms, one decides to have their baby the night before me, and so they all get there, and I just, it was a lot easier than I thought it was. And I know that's not the
Mhm,
case for everyone, but when you've had like these intense Pitocin contractions, the real deal, I was like, okay, I'm like, wow, this is pretty manageable. Now, I
yeah.
did a lot to prepare for labor. I went to a chiropractor religiously. I walked as much as I could, and my job kept me very active. So I think that was a
Mm,
big part in making sure baby was positioned correctly. So I rested, but she's so funny. Every time we meet, she say, "When I show up to your birth, it's time to start putting in some work." And sure enough, we were doing squats. We were walking up the stairs. I was walking around the backyard, just kind of like
mhm.
breathing through contractions. And I was fairly surprised how well I was coping with it. And honestly, her team, they were like, I don't even think you're in active labor. Like, you are not, you're not groaning, you're not moaning, like we're laughing and talking. And I would like pause, sit on the ball, like through a contraction. And as I dilated more, I had to kind of like slow down a little bit. But and
Mhm.
maybe that's how I cope, is just through laughter and like, just keeping the vibe of the room like easy going.
Yeah.
So they got to our house probably around 7:38 that morning. And I think around noon is when I was finally like, okay, I'd like to get into the tub.
Mhm.
Um, and oh, it was just like such a wonderful feeling. Just like you just feel like you're enveloped with this warmth. That's it's just like cozy. And I think I
Yeah.
stayed in the tub for about 2.5 hours, and
Mhm,
just kind of we had worship music on, and it was so beautiful because I could tell how much my midwife and her team, they just trusted the labor process. Like they didn't feel the need to
mhm,
like hover or constantly check everything. It was like I'd get a fetal heart rate check every now and then, and she'd ask me, where I'm feeling the contraction. And it was just really beautiful to see how birth can just be trusted and so hands off.
mhm.
Um, and it's just almost like how it was meant to be, right?
Yeah.
In circumstances. And around, I want to say 3 o'clock or so, I'd been in the tub for a while, and I was like, I don't know, they're feeling a little bit more intense. Maybe I could get a cervical check just to see where we're at. And I wanted to make
Mhm.
sure the warmth of the tub wasn't slowing labor down.
Yeah.
And so I got checked, and she's like, you're complete. You're looking good. I was like, okay, awesome. I was like, I don't really feel any urge to push or anything, but
Mhm.
I'd like to have a snack. So my sweet husband made me like a snack plate, got me my electrolyte water. And I was like, you know what? Something about that birth tub, the base of it is so like squishy. I was like, I feel like I can't really like put my feet down and like feel solid. So I was like, let's try my bed. So we all go to our bed, and the sweet birth team, they have all their little setup, the heating pad to get ready for baby. And so they pick it up and transfer it to the room. And so I'm on my bed, and instantly it's like transition kicks in. I was like,
Mm.
holy Toledo, this is what everybody talks about. And just that feeling, I was doing a really good job of staying
Mhm,
calm and collected, but that feeling of just, it's like a little bit of panic set in. And I wasn't
mhm.
even panicked that I had to deliver the baby. It's if I could describe it anyway, it was like all my bells and whistles were going off inside my body, like that fight or flight response. Like, okay, something's happening, and it's a little
Yeah.
scary, different. And we got on my bed, and the same thing. I was like, I feel like I can't put my feet down on the bed. Like
Mhm.
it's too squishy. And so we tried for a couple contractions there. And surely enough, we were not laughing anymore. I was not talking to anyone anymore. It was yelling and moaning and groaning.
Yeah.
I would love to say that I had a very zen, calm demeanor about me during pushing. I absolutely did not. I roared this girl out. So after a couple contractions on the bed, I was like, yeah, I got to get back in the birth tub. That was way more comfortable. So we get back in the birth tub, team picks up the little, setup and do. And it was just, I don't even know how to describe it. I think I became a little panicked, like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
like I can feel her descending, and I was really calm, and now I'm not anymore. Like, what the heck
Mhm.
happened? And I laugh about it now because I was like, you guys are gonna have to pull this baby out of me. Like, nope, I can't do it. I'm out. I'm done. I've been in labor for almost 24 hours. I'm tapping out. And my midwife and her student and the nurse assistant, my husband, were all just there, like, no, you're doing it. Like, you're literally
Mhm.
doing it. And that when she told me to reach down and feel my baby's head, I was still like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I have to do this. But it was like, okay, she's there. We're literally sitting on the precipice of welcoming a baby into this world. And all I have to do is just let my body do it and
Yeah.
tell my body that I also have to do it. And so they were all so wonderful, just keeping ice packs on my head. One of them threw my hair in a bun, and just lots of yelling and moaning and groaning. And finally I felt that ring of fire, which I honestly don't even like. I remember it, but I think the brain protects us from this. Like, the brain maybe
Mhm.
erases certain parts so that we'll have more kids. Yeah, and she just little Josie, she just popped right out, and before I knew it, they're like, "Lean back, grab your baby, she's here." I'm like, "Oh my God, I did it! That's crazy!" And oh, it was so marvelous.
Mhm.
And I at first I felt like that immediate quick postpartum period. I felt like I had, I don't know what the word is, maybe failed myself, because I went from this calm, collected demeanor to like panicking, like, I can't get her out. I can't do this. You guys have to do this for me. Nope.
Mhm.
I'm giving in. But now looking back, like about 7 months postpartum, it's like, no, I did the dang thing. And it's okay
Mhm.
if your birth is not this calm, beautiful, breathing. And that's
Mhm.
absolutely possible too. But it's also okay if you're
Yeah.
screaming and roaring and gripping your husband or gripping the tub. Like, you did
Mhm.
the dang thing. And I gotta say, being able to just relax back in that tub while the placenta is delivered, get some yummy food, and then crawl into your bed. Oh, chef's kiss. I mean, like,
Yeah.
is there any, like, you're in your cozy bed, you have all the covers, there's like heating pads, and everything's done right in front of you. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. And I know
Mhm.
medically that isn't, home birth isn't a possible, or yeah, isn't a possibility for every single woman, but my goodness, if you just knew how like beautiful it is. You put in so much hard work, and then it's over and you're in your bed, and it's so
Mhm.
cozy and beautiful. um
Yeah.
I was just like, holy moly, we did it. I did the dang thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was really beautiful, and as it should be, and undisturbed. And I feel like the women who were attending my birth, in addition to my husband, who I call him my home birth hubby, everybody was so confident in me. And it's hard to feel like you can't do it when everybody is cheering you on. Like, it's really hard
Yeah.
to do yourself when you have a team of women who do this for a living, and your husband who hasn't seen a home birth before, but it's like, you got this. Like, you're literally doing it. So like,
Yeah.
you can, and also you're not giving up because your baby is crowning. Like, so calm down. So it was a beautiful experience, and I look forward to the day I get to do it again. That won't be for a while, just we're catching our breath with 2 kids. But and as kind of an almost certified birth doula, I want women to know that even if they want a hospital, a birth center, home birth, but you just have options, and
Mhm.
birth can be undisturbed and beautiful, and it doesn't have to be something traumatic that you have to recover from.
Yeah, definitely. I absolutely love how you explained everything, like, your birth story was just so amazing and beautiful, I loved it. But how you said, like, you thought you were going to be zen the whole time and just, like, calm, and then all of a sudden you just weren't anymore,
Yes.
and that's okay because it is, like, not everyone gives birth the same way, and there's
Mhm.
not one right way to give birth. You don't
Exactly.
have to be quiet and calm the entire time and just, like, "Boop, your baby's out." That's not a
If
right
only it
way
were
to
that
give.
easy.
And some women do give birth like that, like,
Yes,
sometimes it happens like that, but it's not all the time, and some just roar the entire time, even from early
absolutely.
labor,
Right,
and
right.
that's perfectly fine too, like, there's no right
Absolutely.
way.
Yes.
Um, yeah, because 'cause I've heard some women say, like, "Oh, it was painful and it was hard, and I was, like, roaring the whole time, like, I failed." No, you didn't.
No.
You didn't
Mm.
fail, there's no right way to do it. You went through and you did it. Even if it ends in, like, a hospital transfer because something happened at home, that's not a failure. You still went through it. You still did it and pushed through.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a really big important thing that more women need to know is like there's not one right way.
Exactly. And it just, we and I if it were that easy, like I love the idea of being able, like I love these videos of these beautiful women like smiling and laughing as they push their babies out. I'm like, you go girl, that is awesome. That wasn't
Mhm.
me and that's okay. And it took
Yeah.
me a second to be like, it's okay that I wasn't like just calm zen in the water. And my husband's like,
Mhm.
you still did the dang thing. You didn't have to get meds. We didn't have to go to the hospital. And
Mhm.
I think it's really important that we also show like the full spectrum of like unmedicated home births, and birth center births, because I don't want anyone to think going into it thinking that, oh, it's going to be that like that. And it's just everybody tolerates pain differently and tolerates
Yeah.
different sensations differently. Some people are more inward and are like, don't touch me, don't talk to me, I don't want to, don't even look at me. Some people need
Mhm.
all the support. They need a doula under one arm, their midwife under the other arm, the husband squeezing their back. So it is so important that we share the full spectrum of what it can look like. And so people know, I think knowledge is
Yeah.
power.
Mhm, definitely, like how they say, if you watch one birth video where the mom is, like, very quiet, you need to watch another birth video after where she's, like, roaring her baby out
Yes, yes.
just to keep it equal.
Got to balance it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's amazing, I absolutely love that.
Thanks.
And you said you're currently training to become a doula? You're, like, in a
Yeah.
program?
Yes, yes. So I'm like on the precipice of being done. I have two live Zoom classes that I have to go through, and
Mhm,
I think like a book report or two to submit. And
okay.
I felt called to this work after our first daughter because I'm like, we
Mhm,
need more women to empower and educate other women
mhm.
and just to be there. Sometimes you just need that womanly, that feminine energy and knowledge, and somebody who's like, I have walked through the fire before. I'm here to walk through it with you, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's a reason we didn't go to our dads or our brothers or our grandpas, like when we got our first period, where it's not like, unless you have that kind of relationship, like you go to your mom or your sister or your
Mhm,
grandma or your best friend's mom, like they just because they have been there before. So yeah, it
yeah,
is. And it's just I look forward to serving women and just empowering them.
yeah. That's amazing. That call is just something that's, like, unexplained of just, like, feeling the
Absolutely.
pull to serve women. It's
Yes.
it's an amazing feeling, and it's great that, like, you're actually going towards it. So
Yeah, I'm excited, especially after I thought I'd be a famous TV news anchor one day in like I don't know, Los Angeles or something. I thought, I went to college for that in Nevada, and I was like, this is my career path. And after birth just changes you, and it changes
Mhm.
you. It like they say, it's the death of oneself and the birth of a new person, and that's you
Yeah.
step into this motherhood. And through that experience and just news was not serving me or my family anymore, and it'll always be there, and I will always hold a love for it. And I love storytelling, I love capturing images, film, and telling a story. But it just I felt this call. I'm like, I got to pursue this, and I have, and
Mhm.
it's wonderful. Like I'm not even fully certified yet, and I already have like three women who are like, yeah, sure, I'd love to hire you. I'm like, what?
Aw.
You're gonna hire me to do this? This is insane.
Uh-huh. Wow, that's great. So do you have, like, a social media account or a website where people can connect with you if they wanna
Yes,
find you?
absolutely. So Instagram, I am Maddie M Hagen, Hagen. And that's the best way just to follow along. I went back and forth between starting a new Instagram, but that one has a lot of followers and is verified. So it's kind of hard to give
Mhm.
that up.
Yeah.
And then I also have a website called wildflowerbirthco.com. And that's where you can find out a little bit more about me and look at all the services I offer. So because I do doula work and I also do videography and I can wear both hats at the same time or do one or the other. And I think birth should be documented. And the more we document it and like present it, especially on
Mhm.
social media, it's like it's not that scary. I mean, it can result in some scary things sometimes, but it's a beautiful thing. And people are like, oh no, I don't want to remember my birth. It's like, oh, we get our like children's first birthdays on camera. Like, why don't we document this transformative process? So
Mhm.
if you're on the fence about birth videography, it is absolutely for you. It's for everyone.
Yeah, definitely. Or even just the photography. Like,
Yes,
I regret not getting a photographer for any of my births. I
right
have
there
a
with you.
few, yeah, I have a few pictures here and there, but it's not like professional, like throughout the entire process or anything. It's just like little snippets here and there. So I'm like,
Yes.
man, my next one, I'm getting a photographer,
Yes,
I'm
I know.
getting a
Third time, you're
videographer.
right. Third time around, we'll do it. I know. We have my first birth. We have like hours of GoPro footage. Shout out to my husband for that. He was Mr. Angling the camera. He's the best. And then my second birth, I think we have like iPhone and GoPro footage, which is better than nothing. Like you can like we
Mhm,
caught the moment that she came out and everything like that. But gosh, you just look at some of these beautiful birth films and pictures, and
mhm.
I'm just like, gosh, I'm like, man, I'm like hitting myself. I mean, you can't change what you can't change, but it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, next time I'm going to put this on my registry. I'm going to say, you want to give us a gift, you can help contribute to us getting a birth photographer.
Yeah.
Everybody, I think it's just, even if birth results in a C-section or it doesn't turn out how you wanted to, like those precious moments of your child entering this earth are just so sacred.
Mhm.
And when they're captured, I mean, you have them forever, like, and that'll be
Yeah.
passed down forever. So yes, right there with you.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and a little bit of your wisdom with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you,
Mhm.
Esmeralda. I appreciate it.
Ah, that was such a beautiful birth story. I absolutely loved it. I feel like I say that after almost every interview that I have done, where I'm just like, "Oh, I loved it. I love that birth story. That was amazing. That was beautiful." But I just love birth so much that every birth story I hear, I'm just like, "Ah." It fills my own cup. I'm not sure if you guys feel the same way. Maybe you do because you're listening to this podcast, so it might make you feel the same way, but listening to other women share their birth stories just really does fill my cup. I get filled with oxytocin, like, I get an oxytocin rush every single time, and it's just amazing. I love hearing these stories over and over again, even if they are the same type of story over and over again. But that's just it's my cup of tea, or I guess for us, it's our cup of coffee, right? Um, so yeah, I really hope you enjoyed listening to that story. I'm going to go ahead and leave all of Maddie's information down below so you can get her link to her Instagram or her website. So go ahead and check those out. And while you're there, you could check out the links that I left for my social media and website as well. You'll find the link to my shop, to my Patreon, and just so many more links that are all linked down there. So go ahead and check that out if you haven't already. Also, I would really appreciate it if you would leave a 5-star review on this podcast if you are liking it so far and you haven't done that yet. Please go ahead and do that now. I would really, really appreciate it. If you are currently planning a home birth and you just want a little bit of guidance on where to start or how to prepare and plan, I do have a home birth guide available that goes over everything you need to get started on planning and preparing for your home birth. It is filled with resources, printables, worksheets, and tons of information and education for you. If that is something you would like to get a copy of, I will leave the link down below as well. And if you just want even more kind of one-on-one time on preparing or planning or even education, I do offer one-on-one consultations, and you can go ahead and book those at any time. I do have limited spots, so if you are wanting those, be sure you book them as soon as you know that you want one. That way you don't miss out on getting a spot on those consultations. Thank you so much for listening today. We'll be back with more homebirth stories.